Welcome to Power Your Life Today. This is Power Session number 42. I'm Kristy Jo, Mind and Body Strategist, and today you are listening to part 2 of Surviving Then and Now, presenting the world with more understanding, insight, and tools to prevent suicide. I lost my oldest brother in 2012 to suicide through a series of unfortunate events that happened quickly. I miss him terribly, and I'm reminded of his absence often. Since that time, I have wanted to understand more of the psychology and emotions that can lead into this state of mind. Today, I'm talking with Julia, whose name has been changed for anonymity. She has been married for 33 years, is a mother, a grandmother, and she's joining me to share her story in the hopes it will help many more people talk about suicide more openly. She shares with us some insights that will provide us with even greater perspective into why it's important to take care of ourselves, why we shouldn't just neglect ourselves and take care of everybody else. You never know to what extent someone might be dealing with deep depression and just how suicidal they may be feeling. If you wish to reach out to me, you may contact me through the Power Your Life Today Facebook page. Please share this with anybody who needs to hear it. That's our hope in doing this series, that the message, the information, and the understanding reaches those people who do need to hear it. Thank you again for being here, and now let's talk with Julia.
The only way to make a difference is to reach out after everything that's happened and everything that I've been through. I really want to share my experience to make a difference if I can and to help other people. So,
well, and no doubt you will. Have you shared your story publicly before?
I've shared my story at a couple of venues for NAMI. I don't know if you know what that is, National Association for Mental Illness. I've done a little bit of sharing that way. I shared with some firemen and paramedics in our community to help them how to deal when they come upon a scene like that and what ways they can help and those sorts of things. And I've shared, a couple of meetings, but I haven't done anything like this before, so I'm excited to have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Do you have any, inhibitions about that or about sharing?
I don't. I don't. I would rather, I wish I had heard more, I think that the stigma is getting better, certainly, but more people need to be talking about it. So I think it's important to share. I'm still here, and I think that part of that, the gratitude of that is to give back if I can.
I love that.
In some way.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you give us a little, preview about who you are and your life, and maybe leading into your downward spiral, or if we could call it that, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay. I am a mom of 3 sons, and like I said, 3 beautiful daughters-in-law, and I have 6 gorgeous grandchildren, and 1 coming in the next winter. And I've been married for about 33 years. I got married when I was 16. Wow. I come from a family that was very splintered and struggled a lot. My mom and dad got divorced when I was about 3 and separated 2 of my brothers, and then my older brother and myself. And I went to we lived with my mom, and then my older 2 brothers lived with my dad. And we had, there was definite mental health issues within my family. When I was about 9, my mom had tried to end her life, and I found her. And so we got her help, and she lived. But that was definitely a very traumatizing moment in my life, and something that always stuck with me. And then, throughout my life, there were just a lot of ups and downs, and we weren't a very stable family. It was definitely, our life was pretty much a struggle. And then I got married. I met my husband when I was 15 and married him at 16, and he was 21, and that naughty boy. And we got married, and we've been together 33 years. And we have a beautiful family, and I guess what happened to me, my brother, who's just a bit older than I am, we were 18 months apart, ended his life when he was 30. He had addiction and ended his life. My mom found him, and that was probably the worst thing that ever could have happened to her and to all of us. And, you know, I think at first I was in denial about how I was feeling. I wasn't really dealing with my grief or I was just kind of taking care of my mom and making sure she was okay. So I didn't reach out for any sort of help. Didn't even realize that I was getting depressed. I'd never had depression in my life. I'd never had a problem with it. I'd had obviously anxiety because I'd been anorexic when I was younger, but I never had a problem with depression or suicidal thinking. And my brother ended his life, and then I had a hysterectomy when I was about 32. So then hormonally I got really messed up, and then I crashed. I had what I would call like a major breakdown, anxiety, depression. The anxiety was insane. I could not even function, and depression. And I had my first little attempt at suicide around that time, but I really wasn't very educated, and I really didn't know what I was doing. But I did have a small attempt around that time, a couple of those, and then, you know, did better for a while. And then, let's see.
Let me pause you right there. Help. I'm curious, so did doctors think it was the hormonal changes from the hysterectomy?
I do believe, you know, at first my obstetrician was like, he didn't check my hormones for a long time, and my husband was saying there is something wrong, and they were like, she's fine. Well, then they had left my ovaries, so they checked my hormones, and my ovaries weren't working at all. And so I've been without anything at the tender age of 32. So they do believe that is what started it, and I spiraled pretty quickly from there. And even once they got my hormones, me taking hormones, I really did not fully get better. I think that I got better, but not for just for short periods, and then I would fall again. And I think it was like the thing that started it, and then I think that once I was in it, I don't really know. I think I just had once I was there, I just kept spiraling, and I certainly would have good even. I even went 5 years after the initial big problem, and then it really hit me, and that's when it got really dangerous. But I did get some help initially. I went up to the University of Neuropsychiatric Institute and got some help. Had met a few doctors up there. Wasn't really hitting it off, and then after a really big attempt, I ended up meeting the doctor that has, you know, helped me the most and really made a big impact on my life. So.
Wow, wonderful.
But
when you're able to meet people like that.
He's like my family, and I'm really blessed because finding a psychiatrist like that is not easy. And anybody who's gone through it can tell you getting help is so hard, and finding someone that really listens to you and doesn't talk down to you, and then it's so important. It makes a really big difference.
Yeah.
So then in 2008, I had been doing a little better, still depressed, still struggling, but I hadn't, you know, attempted for quite a few years, 5 years, I want to say. In 2008, it kind of was like, I think it was like a whole big avalanche of things that happened in my life personally, and I was struggling with depression, and I had probably the worst depression I'd ever had, and the anxiety was so bad I couldn't even function. And I was trying really hard to go to school, and I was taking care of my family. My kids were young, and I was trying to be a good wife and a good mom and go to school and take care of my home and be a friend and so on and so forth. And a whole bunch of things just happened all at once, and I was very depressed. And depression is a lie. It's a liar. It sort of tells you I think when you think of suicidality, how people's mindset is during that time is, at least for me, it was a constant background noise of you have to kill yourself. You have to kill yourself. They would all be better off without you. You need to die. You need to die. And you would be doing everyone around you a favor. You're the reason for every bad thing that happens, and it's all your fault. And it's a liar. And when you're in that weakened state of mind because you're depressed, you believe those lies. And besides that, it's relentless. Like, I don't think there were moments that the only times I had breaks is if maybe I was doing something where I was really busy and with people, but most of the time that's what was going on in my head. And so I had a massive suicide attempt in 2008. And I took a massive amount of medications and ended up, I had gone to a hotel and I had planned it all out, and I went to a hotel to be away from my family. I took a massive amount of medication, and I was in a coma for 4 days on life support. And they only found me because for some reason I was calling people, which I don't even know how that was capable, telling them goodbye. And my brother lived in Seattle, and he called the police and had them find my track my cell phone, and they found me. And that was probably, I've had two like that, and those are the two worst. So that was a really hard time and hard for everybody around me.
Sure.
Just a terrible moment in my life. But
yeah, how did it feel when you were brought to, when you came out of your coma and realized that you had not been successful?
I think I was really confused because I was still had a lot of medication in me, and I was goofy because I was medicated. But I was angry too, because I guess I looked at one of my daughters-in-law and called her a name, which I don't feel that way about her, but I guess I did that, and I probably thought she was the one that saved me because she was really constantly in contact with me. I think that I was, very, very, why am I still here? And so, I was a bit angry and a bit frustrated, but also there was some relief there. So I know, and I went from there straight up to uni, which is, and I had electroconvulsive treatments, which is called ECT, and that's where they got desperate because nothing else was working, and they were pretty sure I was going to die. So we did that, and I had like 8 treatments. So then after that, I was just kind of real confused for a while, because that's what that does for a while. It saved my life, certainly, because it snapped me right out of suicidal thinking, but it was certainly a difficult time.
So I would love to explore a little bit of that downward spiral, not only for those maybe who are feeling that way or in part of that spiral, as well as those who, are in the families or friends support circles and recognizing there's been other people. So you said a lot of things for you, and this experience happened all at once. So I'm sensing, frustration or unmet expectations, difficulties. Do you want to go into detail about those, or
what was happening?
Yeah, what kind of events make us shut down?
Well, chemically, I'm depressed, so that was always just there. So I had that depression and trying to function with depression and try and do all the things that you need to do and love everybody around you and give them what they need, is hard.
You had a lot of obligation on you.
Right. And you don't take the time to take care of yourself because you're so busy taking care, at least for me, I was so busy taking care of everybody else, I was neglecting myself tenfold. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't taught. I wasn't really, people knew I was depressed, but they didn't know to the extent at the time how depressed I was. I didn't really at that time like to share about how suicidal I was. That came later when I was able to talk about that, when I would feel that way. But at that time, I was burying it. I just felt so incredibly hopeless. And then, we had some things happen within our in my marriage that was kind of difficult, and so that was hard, and just normal stressful things, but you top that off with some depression. And I had lost my brother, and I was dealing with my mom who had just gotten dementia, or just been diagnosed with dementia, and I was trying to care for her. She had a heart attack, and I was really trying to take care of my mom and my kids. My middle son had gone on a mission, and though I was thrilled about that and so excited for him, there was that little bit of sense of loss, I guess, which I think a lot of people don't talk about. But because I was depressed, it kind of made it harder. But I would never change that he went on that mission, because it was the best thing for him in the whole world. But yeah, there were just a lot of things going on, and just depression on top of it. So I think I spiraled from all of that, and then that sense of, well, it's so frustrating the way depression lies to us, and like I said, and the way it talks to us. Like, we were having some problems in our marriage and financially, and I was sure that if I was gone, none of that would be a problem anymore. Like, I was the reason for every problem, which makes no sense. But that's a depressed frame of mind. And people, they say depression is suicide is the most selfish thing. And you know what? It is a selfish thing. However, when you're suicidal and when those thoughts are occurring to you, you think you're being so incredibly unselfish. I'm going to end my life so that everybody can have a better life, and I'm going to do this for them because that's what my brain is telling me to do.
Something I hear a lot from people is that, well, people who are suicidal or want to take their lives, they just don't have a lot going for them. They, things have gone bad for them. They don't have people in their life. And what your situation, which every single person listening to this is going to have a unique situation, and there is no blanket statement for anyone, it's just understanding. But the thing I appreciate is that you are sharing, you had a lot going on. You had family.
I did.
You have, years of success behind you in good relationships, and it sounds like successful in your intellectual and your education and, things like that. So it's just overwhelm and not caring for yourself, and boom, bam, everything in a big pile slamming you. And like you said, in conjunction with already a chemical, how would you describe depression? Just an imbalance. There we go.
Yeah.
So this truly can impact anyone.
Right. Oh, anyone. I mean, I think you, anywhere you're at, no matter what you're doing, there are people around you who are struggling with depression, suffering with depression, anxiety, which I sometimes think for me is worse than depression, and struggling with suicidal thinking. And they're not telling people, or they've tried to tell people, and people have either frightened them, or they've passed them off, or they don't know what to say. So what do you do? And so I think that's where we all have to come in and say, if we notice something, or if someone does get brave enough to share with us, and it is bravery to go to someone and say, look, I'm thinking about ending my life. That's a scary thing to share with someone. And I think we have to be able to listen to that and to really hear it, and then to see what we can do to get them help or support. Even if we have to talk to somebody else to do that, if we don't know what to do, but not to pass those people off or just assume they're just having a bad day, because I think a lot of people think, oh, you're just having a bad day. Snap out of it. Go be happy. You can choose. And that's another thing I would say about depression is, when you're in the throes of depression, when you're really in the throes of it, you cannot choose to be happy. It's not possible. I mean, I said it so many mornings when I would wake up, okay, I'm just going to be happy today. I'm going to go out and I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to smile and I'm not going to think about it. No, it doesn't work that way. And what it is for me is, when I'm well, like I am now, that's when I take the actions to make choices to make myself happy, where I do the self-care and I check in with myself daily, and I'm like, how do I feel? If I'm doing okay, that's awesome. And if I'm having a rough time, I acknowledge that, and I do some self-care, and I also talk to people that I love who support me. So I think when you're talking to someone who's depressed and they're in the throes of it saying, snap out of it, it's going to be okay, is not the way to go. But when someone's doing better and they're healthy, that's the time to start going, well, what can you do for yourself to stay healthy, you know?
That's a good point. Those different buckets, I guess you could say, like there's a certain point that once you go beyond, personal development and positive thoughts and just snap out of it, that's not going to, it's probably going to be counterproductive.
Nope.
Because there's a little bit of
because then you feel,
frustration.
and you're ashamed. Well, why can't I do it? You already have all this shame because you're depressed and you're thinking things that you think no one else on the planet thinks. I mean, you think that you're so isolated within yourself, and then you're telling yourself you have the shame of, well, I can't even step out of it. I can't even try. I can't, so you have that shame that kind of, it buries you. So, yeah, it's an ugly, ugly thing, and it's heartbreaking that so many people are suffering.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said about finding the right help, because what I'm imagining is if we're in that darker phase where positive thought isn't going to do it for us, we do need to get that help. And I think some people kind of shudder at the thought of help, like, oh, you can't do it yourself. Well, would you say there is a point you have to accept that you can't do it yourself?
Yes. Yeah, there's a time when you can't do it yourself, when you need those people who know you and who've been who can maybe see things you can't, to reach in and go, okay, you need help. And it's okay for yourself to ask for help. It's okay to just, even if it's hard to get the words out, say, I need help. And I hope that people are willing to say that, because had I not said those words, I would not be here today. I wouldn't. There's no way on earth I would be here today without not only asking for help, but accepting that help when it came my way and saying, yeah, because at one point I was just given the help. I was put in the hospital, but I chose to go, okay, I've got this help in front of me. I can either be angry and frustrated and sad that I'm here, or I can use this help. And when I chose to use the help is when I started to get better.
I've heard a lot of talk about this word trigger as I've been talking with different people. Maybe we feel we're recovered. Maybe we feel we've stepped away from that danger zone. But do you have triggers? Do they stay around? Are you supposed to just be over it? Or what are your thoughts on any of those triggers?
I think I do. I have some triggers. I have some triggers if some of the emotional things that happened during that time, if people start talking about it during those 2 times that I had those severe suicide attempts, if people start talking about some of the things that were going on during that time, I can sort of trigger where it kind of for a second takes me right back there, and and then I have to realize that's over and that was then. But yeah, I have triggers, or just thinking about my brother and the way into his life can be hard for me. I've come a really, really long way with that. But definitely there's triggers, and there's small triggers that I'm probably not even aware of. So, but I'm kind of to a point now where difficult things that happen in my life are just that. They're just difficult things that happen in my life, and I need to work through them. And I try very hard not to let those things bury me anymore. I try to, okay, this is just a problem. It's not the end, or it's not something that's going to bury me. It's just a problem, and I can work through this, even if it's a big problem. So, but triggers are definitely going to always be there. I have no doubt.
Okay. What happens? Yeah, I'm curious what you've told these paramedics or EMTs, any of these, people you've talked to about. If you find someone in a suicidal situation, what would be your advice to them?
Well, what happened to me was my last suicide attempt, which was 3.5 years ago. or 3 years ago, I don't know. Anyway, the paramedics came. I was behind it, and I was at a church, and the paramedics came, and they were obviously frustrated. They did not know what kind of danger I was in because I was once again in a coma, and I nearly died on the table. But they didn't. I was still coherent. I was still there, and they came, and they were obviously frustrated. Like they thought it was kind of disgusting. Is the picture I got, and they had to put me up on the rolling bed, whatever, stretcher, and instead of picking me up gently, they picked me up by my hands and feet and kind of tossed me onto the bed, and they were kind of making jokes, and it was kind of and my son and my daughter-in-law were there, my youngest, and it was kind of a really horrible situation. And so when I went and I talked to them, they were, many of these paramedics were just shocked that would happen. But also to be able to talk to them about sensitivity and respect. It doesn't matter how I got that situation. Yeah. I was in a bad situation. I was very ill. I needed help. And so I think I talked a lot about respect and sensitivity, not just to me, but to my family members, because that really hurt my son and my daughter-in-law. And so I definitely talked about, trying to have some compassion in a very difficult situation. Even if they did have judgment, their job is not to show that judgment, because you're going to get judgment when you try to end your life. There are so many people who absolutely don't understand it. So that's what I talked about with them, and they were very receptive and very wonderful. So I think reaching out to people who are in that moment of care is kind of an important thing, because it's something that is so stigmatized and people just don't understand. So
yeah, well, they lack that ability to even try to understand, and they come from that place of their bias. And yeah, we all have bias. We all have our own experience,
sure,
or understanding, and hopefully through this podcast, our listeners are saying, wow, this has provided me with some new insight I may have never considered before. Can I enlarge my perspective here to talk more openly?
Right. Because if we don't start talking openly, we're just going to lose more and more people. And we have lost so many people. It's a daily thing. So if we don't start talking, it's just anything that is secretive carries shame. And when we carry shame, it just makes things so much worse. Shame, I think that's the biggest part of depression and suicidal thinking, is the shame that comes along with it. And the shame after a suicide attempt is huge. You're ashamed. You don't want to see anybody. You want to hide. You're embarrassed. You feel weak, and you feel terrible about yourself. And then if people are judging you, how do you get past that,
How have you gotten past that?
I've gotten past it by, well, first of all, I have a tremendous support system. I have a husband who has loved me through all of it, who has stuck by my side. I have children who understand and who just loved me as mom, and they don't hold any of that over my head. They understand that it's an illness, that it's separate from them, and that it's just like having cancer or diabetes or any of those things. So I have friends. I have just a lot of people who care about me. And so I've gotten past it by reaching out to those people, by leaning on their support. I've gotten past it by learning to like myself, learning who I really am, taking that time, doing things that I really love, trying to take better care of myself, which I'm not always good at, but it's a really important part of it. Spending time in nature. We moved out to an area where we have a little farm, and I'm with little animals all day, and that's very nurturing for my soul. And just forgiving myself. I think that's the biggest thing, is I've forgiven myself. I understand myself, and I like myself. So that's taken a long time to get to, but that's how I've gotten to the point that I'm at now. I'm not saying depression will never hit me again, but I'm doing everything in my power finally to, also there came a point after my last suicide attempt where when I woke up from that attempt, I was like, never again. I will do anything I have to do to never get here again. And so I had hated ECT, but it's the only thing that'll work. So I did some ECT, and then I did some maintenance treatments for a while. I took my medication like I was supposed to. So, and I sought help from my doctor whenever I needed. So that's been a big impact in my life too.
Wow. You've given us a tremendous list of things that you're doing now, that you have done, ideas, suggestions, tools that are really beneficial. And I'm sure that our listeners are really grateful for this insight. I know I am. And you know, just I feel the past week in opening up my mind and my heart to understand this even more fully. It's completely, I thought I had an open perspective. No, it continues to enlarge. And my hope is that each of us listening realize our value in the world, our uniqueness, our contribution, whether we believe the lies, I like to say, would you agree? The lies in our minds sometimes that tell us that we're not worth it, that we're completely insignificant, that nobody cares. Those are just straight up lies. And
they're straight up lies.
we've got to challenge them. And getting that support around us is a really wonderful thing. Any last thoughts or advice, suggestions, wishes that you have for our listeners?
Certainly my wish is that suicide will be becoming more something that we talk about more openly, more mainstream. And I also would like to say that I've never been lost on the pain that this illness has caused those I love, those that care about me. I know what I've put them through, having been through it myself. I know what they've been through, and my gratitude for that, for them, and for what they've been through, and my compassion for them, and I just honor them so much for everything that they've had to go through with me, beside me as I take this journey. And I guess what I'd like to leave is there's something to be grateful for in everything, even in something like depression. I've certainly learned more about myself. I've learned how to be compassionate with myself and how to be compassionate with others. I've learned how to reach out a lot better. So there's always a gift in the darkness if you can just look for it. So that's what I'd like to leave. And I really hope those that are struggling out there will reach out for help. And I know it takes a lot of bravery and a lot of strength. Don't let it get you. Reach out. Do things for yourself. Take good care of yourself. And, just say those words. Just say, I need help if you need to, because it's really okay. And if there's not someone in your life, call a hotline. Call somebody. There's a lot of hotlines out there. Or get on the Internet. You can go to the Samaritans and you can share what you're feeling. So there's a lot of ways to get help. Please get help.
Beautiful. We sure appreciate you.
You bet. Thank you.
That you are powering your life, and challenge all our listeners as well to power your life today.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity.
If this resonated with you, please share it with one person who comes to mind. Investing in yourself is the best investment you're ever going to make, because when you improve your life, everybody around you improves their lives too. Subscribe to this channel so you are really sure to catch our next power session together, so you can continue to power your life to one of more service, value, and love. Until then, power your life today.